Good evening, punters, and welcome back to another episode of The Tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a punting perspective. This week, we'll be having a look back through round one of the NRL finals, and once again, we always tend to do very good in the finals of the NRL, and we've started off red hot, going 4-1 on best bets. Not only that, cashing a same-game multi at over $4 and cashing a Bet365 multi at over $16, so it's been an absolutely great start to week one of the finals and an absolutely crazy round. Jacob, how you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks, mate. As we said, leading into this round, this is arguably the best weekend of sport for Aussie sports fans, with obviously our footy final codes, starting off their finals to the most number of high-stakes finals games, and then just all the other sporting events that's on around the world that you might be following as well. And we delivered 16-1 multi. That was with three of the NRL games that we liked, even with some AFL sprinkled in there. You mentioned the same game. We also had a 40-1 that missed by one leg, one AFL game that lost by less than a goal. So it could have been even better. But how crazy was this weekend? The underdog in all four NRL games led 10-0, 14-6, 12-0, 14-0.
Madness.
That is crazy. And I just think my one takeaway overall was momentum has never mattered more than it does right now with the new rules, that when a team kind of can harness momentum, they can go on crazy scoring runs. And maybe from a punting perspective, we'll dive into each of the four games, but maybe a bet that we often love to play when we think a game will be tight and we think maybe lower scoring, we play the no three unanswered tries and stuff. Maybe you've got a second guess. Luckily, we didn't play it this weekend, but it happened in every game, at least three. And in fact, in some of the games, a lot more than three unanswered tries.
Very easily, yeah. And I guess the funny thing is, and we'll go through each game one by one, but I do think it may be down to just variance, because there was numerous games this week where it was back-to-back tries, and that has nothing to do with the new rules. That's just a little bit of variance, I do think. Let's start with Friday night. It was the Panthers beating the Roosters 29 points to 28. We did have a couple of best bets on this one. Unfortunately, go 1-1 even, despite liking the Panthers in this one. And look, to be honest, I did think that they deserved the win, the Panthers. I thought they were the better team in this one, and you got a little bit unlucky if you had the Panthers line and you get that late Roosters try that covers the Roosters line there. But look, the Panthers got shocked in the first 10 minutes, and we were looking at that. We talked about it earlier, Jacob. Like, the Roosters scored the first two tries bang bang in the first 10 minutes, and we were thinking to ourselves, why the fuck did we bet on the Panthers when, this Roosters team is a juggernaut back-to-back premierships? And honestly, it was a soft, pretty soft try down the short side to Josh Morris, and then like an unforgivable defensive error when, the dummy half, Freddie Lussick, goes over for a try on fifth tackle. Like, you cannot let that in. And so after 10 minutes, they're down 10-0. But we've said this all year, and we've been going on and on about this Panthers side, and they've been so underrated, I believe, despite, winning the minor premiership. They never panic. They're relentless. And they've done the same thing all season long, and that's exactly what they did here. Cleary gets a hat-trick in the first half, which is ridiculous. And then the Panthers come all the way back, 28-10. It looks like it's pretty much over. And then, the Roosters come back. Got the game within 15 minutes to go. You're thinking, oh my God, To be fair, the Roosters, that last try to get them within 6 was like the luckiest try that I've ever fucking seen in my life. But the Panthers deserved the win, deservedly. And I think now they're finally probably getting the respect from punters that they deserve. And look, in terms of looking forward to next week's punting, I know that obviously Roosters have to play next week. Panthers get the bye. But although you'd say it's a tough game to back up from, it is the Friday game, we have to remember. So a little bit more time for this Roosters side to get healthy.
I definitely agree Panthers deserve to win this, because Nathan Cleary kicks a field goal to put them up 7 with like 3 or 4 minutes to go. That essentially wins the game. But then a Brent Naden brain snap. He plays at the kickoff when it hadn't gone 10. Penalty Roosters. They score that set, and then they actually got the ball with 90 seconds to go. I think they even got a set restart. So Cleary literally had a shot to tie this up, which would have just been the craziest finish to what was a crazy game. And while we tipped the Panthers, and so I'd agree, we did get it right, it wasn't because we wrote off the Roosters for the Bunnies' performance. Of course, losing 60 points to 8 in round 20. We knew they were going to come with such a higher level of performance in this game, and they did. And then maybe we're going...
And if anything, that says something for us to take Panthers when we usually would lean towards a side that lost by 50 plus in the previous week.
That's right. And of course, the Roosters, you could get +2.5, but this Panthers team is something else. What they did to the Roosters on Friday night is what they've been doing to everybody, just utterly dominating games. So from 10-0 to the Roosters, Panthers scored 28 straight points. And of course, Nathan Cleary had a hat trick in the first half. I mean, you never see the Roosters let in 3 tries to a team in a first half, let alone a single player halfback. I know that, notwithstanding round 20, but I mean, this was the Roosters bang up for the game. So his first try, maybe a bit lucky, questionable if Liam Martin dropped the ball or offloaded it. Second was an incredible pickup. He beats Teddy to the ball. Was that really a proxy for who's the best player in the world right now? Because it was Tedesco versus Cleary, and I think they were each their team's best player. And Cleary was the best player on the ground. And the third one was the killer because it was only 16-10 with a few minutes to go in the first half. That's anybody's game. But they let Crichton, who's Stephen Crichton, he's special as well, let him slip through and Cleary scores again, 22-10. You felt that whoever scored the first try the second half would win. And in fact, the Panthers get a fortuitous try for Bomb, 28-10. Then you think the Roosters are gone and you think they're going to get smashed. So they showed true heart of a champion. You have to give them enormous credit for the fact that they did come all the way back. You could see Robinson absolutely pumped in the box. And it's not out of the question. They can beat the Raiders next week.
Sure.
And what a game that'll be. The Storm potentially have lost Cam Munster, so they're not going to say that they couldn't win that, even though the Storm be rested. Not out of the question these two teams meet again. Just one more point. The Roosters have amazing middle forwards, as we know, but I think the best middle forward on the field was Isaiah Yeo, and I think he was Penrith's second best, helped them get the win, and that's so exciting for them. Now they're very likely to be into the grand final.
Indeed they are. Let's move on to the Saturday game. It was the early one, the Raiders beating the Sharks 32 points to 20. We just had the one best bet on this one. We liked the overs, and we did cash that one through a sports bet same game multi. And look, another super fun game, and I know you mentioned momentum and stuff, Jacob, but every single game this week went over the total, which is very rare for finals games. Generally, the defense steps up, but it definitely has something to do with those new rules. And look, I know we expected a lot of points in this one, but to be honest, kind of didn't expect the way that this game went, to be honest. I mean, Sharks started off pretty much red hot. Not just red hot, but the Raiders started off a little bit lax on defense, made some defensive errors and some bad errors early on. And they find themselves in a 14-6 hole, which, against a better side, perhaps, they might have gone on to lose that game. But as we saw as this game progressed, this Sharks defense has just been, it's been terrible all season long. And that's why we've played a lot of games involving the Sharks overs. And obviously it's not going to improve week to week, especially in week one of the finals. And we saw that. I mean, the Sharks had all the momentum. They're up 14-6 in the first half. And then, pretty much against the run of play, George Williams gets an intercept try. Somehow, the 5'0" guy finds fucking some toe to run 60 meters and score a try. And that was the turning point. When you're a big underdog, you need those 50-50 plays to go your way. Not only that, then shortly after, Jack Whiten, quick tap, catches them out of, off guard. They can't challenge it. It's a try. Then I think very next set, didn't Whiten score again on the very next set? So, I mean, and then the game's over. And look, I think the Sharks defense is to blame for this one. They just haven't been good all season long. I know, obviously, there's, you can easily make excuses for them saying Sean Johnson wasn't there and he would have made a difference perhaps. But the Raiders did deserve the win here, just had to get there the long way round. And like you mentioned before, absolutely cracking grand final rematch next week with the Roosters, which should be an epic one.
And that's the best part of the Raiders winning this, because we get the game we deserve. We get the grand final rematch. Whereas if the Sharks had somehow stolen this, which would not have been out of the question from the way they started, leading, as you say, 14-6 with a couple minutes to go in the first half. I mean, we know they would have stood no chance against the Roosters next week. So, I mean, their defense wasn't that bad in the sense that, as you say, you give up an intercept try. There's a try for quick tap, which is controversial, but I think Whiten was within his rights.
No, it was. It was rough,
and then
though.
His next try was off a bomb as well. So, but, the opening try of the match by Tapine, who was another starting lock forward, I have to shout out, he had 9 tackle breaks, but he had a couple of those tackle breaks for the opening try, which was very poor defense in a finals game where he threw a couple people off him and scored. And that kind of sums up the Sharkies ultimately. And they had a fair crack, but when a few things go against them, they're like a $5 underdog as it is. I mean, I wondered at the start of the game if the Raiders players felt like they were still in their week off, because obviously Ricky rested nearly the whole team. But they came good second half ultimately. I think if you'd taken the points with the Sharks, which we weren't going to do because we knew Raiders should be too good, I think you deserved to cover. You needed a 90-meter intercept try with 2 minutes to go for the Raiders to for the Sharks to backdoor cover. But again, it's like it was a crazy game where the Sharks led by 8 and then the Raiders scored 26 straight points through the middle of the game.
And I think it's a funny one because not only this game, but also the Storm game. And we are not that we argue. I think we're on the same side of this one, Jacob, in terms of rest versus rust going into the finals. And I think we both agree that like if there's nothing to play for, you should rest all your key guys to get them healthy into week 1 of the finals. But as we've seen, with the Raiders and the Storm, both of them starting extremely slowly. And that's the game we'll get onto now. It's the Storm beating the Eels 36 points to 24. We did have a couple best bets on the Eels, and we do cash both of those. And this was an epic game. I really enjoyed this one. This was one of the best week 1s of the finals that I think I've seen in quite some time. And everyone had written off everyone had written off the Eels in this one. Everyone was taking the Storm, and that was part of the reason we liked it, but also because we thought that the Eels were coming in a little bit underrated. Marnie'd been out for a little while, etc. And they out-enthused the Storm, and I don't think it was necessarily rust at the start for the Storm, but we've seen this on numerous occasions from the Eels. They come out fucking like a bull out of a gate, and that's exactly what they did here. Not only out-enthused them, but like out-executed them, and that's what you rarely see, on these. I know the Eels are like an upper echelon side, but we've said all year, it's like the difference between those like bottom 8 teams and the top 8 teams isn't much. Sometimes it's just execution, and that's what the Eels did better than the Storm early on. That's the attack from the Eels we were seeing at the beginning of the season, and I'll go back to that Panthers game a few weeks back that the Eels played. This reminded me a lot of that. The Eels were so awesome in the first half. They came out, and honestly, like, I don't think it's necessarily that the Eels are like less fit than other teams, but it's like they come out so hard and they're just going so hard, and I know that they got a lead in this one, but that shit does fatigue you. They're like so pumped, and you could see it. They were waning in the second half. But the Storm, like we said, I think it's similar to the Panthers, really. They're just relentless, and they're the same level for the full 80 minutes, and they say, we're going to play like legit for 80 minutes. You have to beat us. In defense of the Eels, like they lose Sivo early, and it's like when you're struggling to get some meters forward in the second half, when your forwards are fatigued, all that kind of stuff, losing a guy like Sivo that's taking early hit-ups, out of your own end, it does hurt a little bit, and I'm not making any excuses for them. Like, probably they wouldn't have won this game anyway, but losing a guy like that early, it does help. Pappenhausen was great in this one. I think he scored a double, and the speed is just like the difference for him. And then like Eels, fuck me. Like, I know we had a same-game multi that cashed on this one for Fergo, but dear Lord, like, can you believe that this guy was playing Origin, like, not too long ago? Like, the try that he scored, he nearly lets dribble over the sideline. He has about 10 seconds to put it down. Then the very next set, and I'm going to say it's his fault, he fumbled that. It was the easiest pickup ever. It was the ball sat up from him, he fumbles it over the sideline, and from then on, the Storm dominated. I thought that was the turning point.
Well, that error was his fault. I can believe he played Origin. I think he was the best winger in the comp last year.
But I'm saying, like, looking at him now, yeah. Like,
and the other thing is not to make an excuse for the Eels, but Fergo got injured as well. Yep. And it's not the production that you lose from players like Steve and Fergo, but they had to reshuffle everyone. They had to have back rowers playing in centres, and they had to have centres playing on the wing and stuff. But you're right, like, they were really impressive to start. I mean, the way that they are so willing to spread the ball, it's beautiful to watch by Para. But ultimately, like, that from leading 12-0, the Storm outscored them 36-6.
Yep.
So scored, 6 of the next 7 tries. And the Storm attack is as good as any in the comp. And when they got their opportunity, they showed it. Pappenhausen, as you said, amazing, like 260 meters, couple of tries. It was funny that the Storm played with just a 15-man rotation because Brandon Smith came on in the middle, had 150 meters, which is big. Tino came in and had 100 meters. But they didn't use Lewis at all, and they only brought Hines on with 10 to go because Munster got hurt, and that's the other really big injury, which we'll find out more about. And it doesn't affect this week, but it certainly affects the prelim. So, we'll find out the severity. It didn't look good. Finucane's going to come in and strengthen this team even more. And I did pinpoint that critical moment. The Eels from being up 12-0 to down 18-12. They score. Fergo scores, good kick from Marnie.
Yep.
Moses drills a sideline conversion. 18 all, half an hour to go. Like, they're looking in good shape to cover the game, and there's still a chance to win, obviously, in a tied game. Fergo knocks it on the very next Storm set off their kick, so first tackle, and they didn't touch the ball again until they were down 30-18. Yep. So of course, like, that swung the game. But throughout 2020, there was never a time where we wrote off the Storm and said they couldn't win the comp. We've said all along that they're an absolute class side that's scary. Now they've got such an opportunity. Raiders, Roosters, both good teams, but they're going to go to war next week while Storm rests up in sunny Queensland, and they've got no issues playing at Suncorp, which is where they'll be in a fortnight.
And props to you, because, Jacob, I believe that was your prediction for the grand final winner. It was the Storm, and they're sitting pretty right now in the semi-finals. Let's move on to the game we just watched. It's the Rabbits beating the Knights 46 points to 20. Didn't have any best bets on this one, and kind of luckily that we didn't, because we talked about this game prior to the preview pod. We talked about it again today and thought, do we want to take this Knights team if it gets to 10.5 points? And we decided, look, probably not, because if the Knights are in an arm wrestle, it could be that, but there's also a high chance that this Rabbit side is just completely legit, and once they run away with it, then they'll put on a score and could win by 20 plus. That's exactly what we said when we talked earlier on today, and that's exactly what happened. And it's crazy, this finals, like dead set, you mentioned it at the start, Jacob, like all these dogs getting up early, the Knights get up 14-0, and you're thinking, what the fuck is going on? And, it's bad defense by the Rabbits, but then just for the remainder of the game, the Knights defense was just absolutely horrific. Like, you give up the next 3 tries in the first half, and then, it's still a relatively competitive game. Your second half, 20 minutes to go, I know it's a 2-score game, you're down 8, but then you let Tavita Totola just take a hit up and score. And this is what we've been, blasting the Broncos about in, regular season games, but in a finals game, you cannot possibly allow that to happen. And then the game's over, you're up 14, 20 minutes left. It's pretty much over. The difference, I thought, was the completion rate second half. I mean, I think Knights went 9 of 16 sets or something like that in the second half. I don't know if the Rabbits had a non-completed set in the second half. I know at some point they were 13 for 13, and honestly, that was the difference, because you're just putting so much pressure on that Knights defense. I will shout out the Rabbits forward pack, because you said this numerous times, Jacob, that obviously they lost Burgess and stuff, and everyone was saying, this Rabbits forward pack is going to struggle. You didn't say that, but a lot of people did, and you've said they've been underrated, and I agree. They stepped up in this one, and we looked. You look at the forward pack on paper, and they look fairly similar, the Knights and the Rabbits here, but the difference is, this South's forward pack, they know how to find the line. Tavita Totola with the double, they know how to hit gaps, and it's guys like Clemmer and stuff are rarely doing that. So, look, this Rabbit side, we've said all season long, it's one team that you probably don't feel too bad backing after a big win. We've seen that, last week, flowing into this week, so yeah, next week's going to be an absolute cracker. One thing I will mention, before you start, Jacob, Cody Walker looked a little bit hobbled. I know, the halves have had some troubles with their injuries. He looked a little bit hobbled. Adam Reynolds looked like he was limping a little bit. He's always limping, but Cody Walker looked like he did something with his ankle, so something to keep an eye on, I think. I
thought Damien Cook was looking hobbled as well, and then he took one to the house late, so that was a good fitness test. But again, 14-0 to the Knights, and if we were, deep down, I was going, why didn't we take the Knights? That line felt a bit too high. We just didn't have the confidence in them. But here, it just goes to show form goes out the window. It looked like they bang up for it. The Bunnies scored the next 46 points, and that's exactly why we didn't take the Knights, because we respected the form that the Bunnies have been in. You can't fluke the way they've been playing, the style of play, and how sharp and how well they executed. And the thing is, the way they're playing, who's to say they can't go all the way? If they play well every week, they can beat anybody. But the real question...
I was going to say real quick, I don't know if you've looked at the lines for next week, Jacob, but have you?
I'm guessing they'll be quite a big favourite against Eels.
I was going to ask you what favourite...
I think they'll be -8.5. Something.
Okay, I was thinking similar-ish. Yeah, okay.
But we'll have a look. But what we try to do here, we're not just telling you what happened, but we're trying to figure out what we can take away from it. And the real question to me is, how much resistance have they met in the last 2 weeks? because I go back to the fact that I really believe the Roosters punted on the game.
Correct.
And then you look at this game, clearly something's just not been right with the Knights, and we could sense it. And, again, they got tailed up in round 20 to the Titans when they had something to play for. So, and you said, like, some of the Knights' defense was awful, and they looked a bit shell-shocked to be leading by double digits, and then all of a sudden they were chasing the game again. So as great as the Rabbitohs have played, it's always a matter of like, well, was it the opponent that made them look good as well? And
right.
Even if they beat the Eels next week, we might still not know how good truly the Rabbits are, because like the Eels could be flat next week. Yeah, and they could just be flat and gassed after playing the Storm. So it's a tough one, but definitely like Corey Allen is doing really well at fullback, and I also think that their forward pack is really all aiming up. And they're just a great, exciting team to watch. So they're absolutely, obviously deserving. Playing their best footy at the right time of the year. And yeah, they'll be the strong favourites for sure. I haven't looked ahead, but no question. They'll be expected to bail the Eels out.
Yeah, they'll be over a converted try for sure, I'd say. And you make a good point in the fact that, like, we mentioned it in the preview pod, because, like, you're catching near double digits with the Knights, and we said, like, is there a chance that, like, they're just a little bit deflated that they didn't get a home final and butchered last week. And, despite going up 14-0, once you get down, like, from being up 14-0, I think at that point they kind of folded. So you're right. Maybe we don't know quite how good this Rabbit side is. But in saying that, like, we've said all season long, like, it's once this side clicks, they've got, like, so many playmakers that they can make, they can make a dent in this final series. So what an awesome week one of the finals, to be honest. Like, I enjoyed every single game. It's not often that you can say that every game was competitive for at least a period of the game. So that'll wrap the week one finals recap, and we'll be back once again 6 p.m. on Wednesday to break down the next round of the finals in the NRL. But obviously NFL, if you guys are interested, that starts tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. Australian time. We have all our best bets up in the Tripod app and in the Tripod group if you're interested in the NFL as well. And Jacob, anything you need to add before we get out of here?
Well, yeah, if you are interested in NFL, you will find our 15-minute or maybe it was even 10-minute preview with our 5 best bets for the games tomorrow morning. I think one is already void. There's some crazy things happening over in the States with COVID outbreaks and games being put in limbo. So it's going to be a wild Monday morning for sure. Nettie's 15-minute video went up this afternoon as well, which is always really entertaining and insightful. And, of course, we've had a great round. We've gone 4-1. We've hit a 16-1 multi, guys. But, you can't expect that to happen every single week. Enjoy it. Tuck a little bit away for a rainy day. And always gamble responsibly.
Wise words. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday to break down round 2 of the finals. See you then.
Lego.